They thought Prince Harry's departure had left a permanent crack inside the royal family. They thought the empty space beside Prince William would remain empty for years. But then one photograph appeared on a Buckingham Palace balcony, and suddenly royal watchers everywhere began asking the same explosive question: has a quiet new royal figure just stepped into the space nobody expected anyone to fill? A moment on the balcony on June 13, 2026. Just one photograph, yet that single image created a storm of whispers across royal circles. Standing beside Catherine, Princess of Wales, was not Prince William. It was not another senior royal commanding headlines every week. Instead, it was an 18-year-old young man who had spent most of his life almost invisible to the international press. James, Earl of Wessex. And that is exactly what made the image so powerful. Because while the world has spent years consumed by public royal drama, emotional interviews, explosive memoirs, family feuds, accusations, and endless headlines, something much quieter has been happening behind palace walls. Something many people completely missed. A new generation has been quietly moving into position. The occasion was Trooping the Collar 2026. On the surface, everything appeared familiar. The military precision, the ceremonial uniforms, the roar of aircraft crossing the London sky, the carefully choreographed royal display that millions around the world expect every year. But seasoned royal observers know that the real stories are rarely found in the obvious places. They're hidden in positioning. They're hidden in body language. They're hidden in who stands beside whom. And on that balcony, one detail stood out immediately. Prince William was occupied with ceremonial duties below. That left Catherine standing at the center of the royal family's future. Beside her were Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, the direct line of succession, the future of the monarchy. Then came the surprise. Standing immediately beside Catherine was James. Not somewhere in the background, not pushed toward the edge, not hidden among distant relatives, right beside the future queen. For royal insiders, that kind of placement is never accidental. Every inch of that balcony carries meaning. Every position sends a message, and this message was impossible to ignore. At just 18 years old, James suddenly appeared not as a shy royal cousin, but as a confident young man standing directly inside the monarchy's most trusted circle. The visual impact was immediate. Dressed in a sharp black suit, standing tall with remarkable composure, he looked completely different from the quiet child many remembered from previous royal appearances. The transformation was striking, almost shocking. But what truly caught attention wasn't his appearance. It was his interaction with Catherine. As aircraft thundered across the sky and cameras captured every movement, James appeared completely relaxed. Photographs showed him leaning toward Catherine, sharing private comments that made her laugh genuinely. Not the practiced smile royal watchers are used to seeing. A real laugh, a natural laugh, the kind that reveals genuine comfort. And suddenly people began connecting dots. Because this wasn't simply a pleasant family moment. This looked like something much bigger. For years, King Charles and Prince William have been aggressively streamlining the monarchy. Fewer working royals, smaller operations, tighter discipline, less room for distractions. After Prince Harry and Meghan's departure, and after Prince Andrew's removal from public duties, many wondered whether the institution had become dangerously thin. Who would support the future king? Who would stand beside William when the next generation was still too young? Who could be trusted completely? The answer may have been standing on that balcony all along. James. The more observers examined the photographs, the more fascinating the story became. Catherine didn't appear guarded around him. She appeared comfortable, relaxed, almost protective. And that wasn't created overnight. Behind every public royal moment is usually a private history. Sources familiar with royal family dynamics have long noted Catherine's close relationship with Prince Edward's family. Long before James became an adult, Catherine reportedly maintained a warm bond with both James and his sister, Lady Louise. While cameras focused elsewhere, relationships were quietly forming. While headlines obsessed over conflict, trust was quietly growing. While public attention followed drama, loyalty was being built in silence. And perhaps that's why this moment felt so different. James wasn't trying to dominate attention, he wasn't performing for cameras, he wasn't creating headlines. Ironically, that may be exactly why he became the headline. In a royal era increasingly defined by public battles and media wars, James represents something completely opposite. Silence, discipline, restraint, qualities many believed were disappearing. The contrast couldn't be more dramatic. On one side sits a modern world obsessed with visibility, personal branding, and constant media exposure. On the other stands a young royal who spent years avoiding the spotlight entirely. Yet somehow, that quiet approach is suddenly generating enormous attention. And as the photographs spread around the world, another realization began emerging. This wasn't simply about James. This was about William. This was about Catherine. This was about the future structure of the monarchy itself. Because if the Prince and Princess of Wales are quietly building a trusted inner circle for the decades ahead, then this balcony appearance may have revealed one of their most important decisions yet. A decision hidden in plain sight. A decision revealed not through announcements or palace statements, but through something much more powerful. Positioning. One photograph. One balcony. One young man standing beside the future queen. And the deeper royal watchers look at that image, the more questions emerge about what is really happening behind palace doors, and whether James, Earl of Wessex, has just become one of the most important figures in the future of the House of Windsor. For many royal watchers, the most fascinating part of this story is not what James has done. It is what he has refused to do. In a world where royal fame can be converted into interviews, documentaries, streaming deals, speaking tours, and endless public attention, James has taken a path that feels almost unbelievable in modern times. The louder the world becomes, the quieter he seems to get. And strangely enough, that silence is becoming impossible to ignore. That is why many observers believe the balcony appearance carried a message far beyond a simple family gathering. The monarchy has spent years navigating turbulence. Every disagreement became front-page news. Every family tension became international entertainment. Every royal appearance was examined for signs of division. Yet standing beside Catherine was a young man who appeared completely untouched by those battles. No controversy, no public complaints, no personal campaigns, just calm confidence. And in today's environment, that alone makes him stand out. The story becomes even more remarkable when you look at how James was raised. Unlike many royal figures throughout history, he was never encouraged to believe that royal status automatically guaranteed a special future. His parents, Prince Edward and Sophie, deliberately chose a different path. They wanted their children to understand something many royal relatives before them struggled to accept. The crown was not a shortcut to celebrity. It was a responsibility, a duty, a burden that required discipline rather than entitlement. That lesson appears to have shaped everything. While other royal stories became dominated by conflict, James quietly focused on education, family, and personal development. There were no dramatic public statements, no visible attempts to gain influence, no efforts to build a personal brand. Instead, he spent years developing something increasingly rare within public life: credibility. And perhaps that explains why so many people suddenly found themselves captivated by his presence on the balcony. It wasn't because he demanded attention. It was because he didn't. The contrast with recent royal history is impossible to ignore. For years, discussions surrounding younger members of the royal family often centered on frustration, resentment, and questions of relevance. The so-called burden of being the spare has haunted generations of royals. Princess Margaret struggled with it. Prince Andrew faced his own complicated path. Prince Harry openly described the emotional impact of living in the shadow of the heir. Yet James appears to have quietly escaped that trap altogether. Instead of viewing his position as limiting, he appears comfortable with it. Instead of chasing a larger role, he seems content supporting those at the center. Instead of competing for attention, he contributes stability. That mindset changes everything. Suddenly, the old royal curse appears broken. And that may be why Prince William and Catherine seem increasingly comfortable placing him closer to the heart of major royal events. Because loyalty without ambition is extraordinarily valuable inside any institution, especially one that has spent years dealing with internal tensions and public controversy. As William prepares for the future, the challenge ahead is obvious. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis are still young. The responsibilities of monarchy are enormous. The demands are relentless. No future king can carry that burden entirely alone. This is where James becomes fascinating, not because he is being transformed into another Prince William, not because he is replacing Prince Harry, but because he may represent something far more useful: a dependable ally, a trusted reserve, a figure capable of stepping forward when needed and stepping back when the moment passes. That role may sound small, but inside royal history, it is priceless. The image from Trooping the Colour revealed something many people had overlooked, while public attention remained fixed on old royal dramas. A new support structure may have been quietly forming in the background. Catherine standing beside James was more than a family photograph. It looked like a glimpse into the monarchy's future architecture. And perhaps the most extraordinary part of all this is how naturally it happened. No announcements, no grand strategy presentations, no carefully orchestrated media campaigns. Just years of trust slowly building behind palace walls, until one moment allowed the world to finally see it. As the roar of the raft fly past faded above Buckingham Palace and the crowds below looked toward the balcony, most probably saw another successful royal celebration. But others saw something much deeper. They saw the emergence of a young man whose greatest strength may be his refusal to seek attention. They saw Catherine's confidence in him. They saw William's future support system quietly taking shape. And now the questions are growing louder. Was this simply a family moment? Or was it the first public glimpse of a carefully crafted royal future? Because one thing is becoming increasingly clear. While others spent years dominating headlines, James quietly built something far more powerful: trust. And inside the House of Windsor, trust has always been the rarest currency of all. The cameras may eventually move on, the headlines will certainly change, but that photograph remains frozen in time, continuing to raise questions that the palace will never directly answer. And perhaps that is exactly why people cannot stop talking about it. The story feels unfinished, the signals feel deliberate, and somewhere behind those palace doors, the next chapter may already be quietly unfolding.